What's up, guys? Twice here with the second installment of our series of why I play this deck. So, as you can see by my playmat, this is going to be for my Blaus, a deck that you guys know that I absolutely love. I've shown you the deck profile for this already. It's been featured in, I think, like 3 or 4 CFA fights. I love this deck. I love using it. Same with Beast Deity. Like, these two decks are what made me love Nova Grappler even more, as if I didn't love it enough already. But so today I'm going to talk about why I like this deck in 4 main categories. First with its aesthetics, second with its card lore, third with its playstyle, and then finally with my own personal experience. So first off, its aesthetics. Now, this is kind of a personal thing in that one of the first animes that I ever really watched as a kid was Gundam when it was on, I think it was Toonami? Yeah. And I don't remember if it was Gundam 00, but anyway, it was just an awesome series. All I remember as a kid was that I loved the giant fighting robots. Yeah, like Transformers, Gundam, stuff like that. I've always liked those kinds of series. And I like the mech genre in general because I think it offers a really good opportunity for great animation. There are so many ways that you can take a mech. Especially, look at Galaxy Ball. I actually have the card right here. Just look at Galaxy Blaukluger and how amazing he looks. You have obviously the large gun and the sword, but just the whole body design of it's supposed to be about agility and power. You can see that he's like cutting 2 cruisers in half in the background, which is incredible. I'll actually go to the full art with the sleeve. Look at that. That was worth every penny. I think with these sleeves were only like $8 on Amazon, which is great because, I didn't want to shell out more money on my sleeves than I would for like a grade 3 unit, but still, they just look so good, and of course the blue border complements it really well. So yeah, the aesthetics of the archetype itself are really great. They follow the whole Nova Grappler aspect, but I'm actually going to go along and show you. Look at Stern. You can see that there are a couple differences between Galaxy and Stern. More of an artillery-based unit, more of a like CQC, yet still more like an artillery unit. And then you have cards like Blaukluger, who is definitely a CQC unit. And, you also got Jupiter, who is actually, I think, supposed to be the standard model. And then cards like Mars are actually a deviation of this, which is kind of interesting just how they explain that. Which is going to lead me now into the lore. I love this card. I love this archetype's lore. It's not as, like, interpersonal as something like Ethics Buster, where it's about, like, overcoming adversity, becoming the strongest, being a leader, things like that. For the Blaus, it's more about, like, the competition aspect of the original Blaukluger. Let me go back to him here. Was actually designed to be, like the first installment of this thing called the Galaxy Fight in Nova Grappler, which, as you can see from the background, especially things like Jupiter Blau, you have the spaceships, you have the mechs and the whole space battles going on. So this card was originally meant to be like the first unit that was going to compete in that. So it's really cool how they designed him. They gave him a energy katana that apparently can cut ships in half because it can get to like 200 meters long, which is freaking incredible. Then they improved on that by making him an artillery unit with Stern, and then made him the ultimate badass with, of course, Galaxy Blau. And then they came up with things like Jupiter Blau as like a standard fighting model, and then Mars, who was a little bit more specialized. But they all have their own specialized, purpose when it comes to the Galaxy Fight. So the aesthetics and the lore are really good, foundations for the archetype. They give you a really good personality for it. You could even look at things like this Schoensvetter, who unfortunately is not an actual Blau. That's one thing that I didn't particularly like, is that the archetype isn't fully developed. But if it was, it would be super broken, so I guess I understand why not. You could even look at things like, Schoensvetter, or not Schoensvetter, Schneerigen, who looks also really good. So, all of them have great designs, and I also like the nomenclature of, like, the German, naming them after stars, naming them after colors, Blaukluger, which means blue wisdom. It's all really interesting. But then I'm going to move on to the playstyle of the deck, which is probably the thing that I actually do like the most about it. And the playstyle is freaking awesome. It's very mean, actually, because pressure is so prevalent in this deck that your opponent feels it every turn. Like, especially if you have Galaxy Blau out, and, your post-break ride, your cross-run or whatever, your opponent feels the constant pressure of this unit. Because the ability is Limit Break, Counterblast 2, drop 2 Nova Grapplers from your hand. if the attack of any one of your Blaus hits, as long as it's the first attack to do so, pay the cost and you restand the whole Vanguard column, which means that your opponent has to guard every single hit, or you get to restand your entire Vanguard column with Twin Drive, which is an incredible, like, improvement upon Stern Blaukluger's ability, which is, makes sense since this card is its cross ride. But that pressure aspect alone is just what makes this deck so good. Combo that with Maud Blaukluger, who unfortunately I don't actually have a copy of, and there is the possibility of getting off 8 full powered attacks in one turn. And that alone is just what made Nova Grappler so good this season, because they really improved upon the restanding, getting off more attacks, and doing so while using their resources more efficiently. And then you have cards that combo with that, like Blaukluger, who's able to unflip damage when he's on Vanguard. The fact that this is Nova Grappler, and you have access to things like Claydol Mechanics, so you can keep your damage open, so you can keep putting that pressure on your opponent. It's very easy for this deck to manage its resources. The other thing that I really like about this deck is its hand control, because I do run, of course, 4-draw, and I run Energy Charger, and things like that. And of course Morgenrot, because Morgenrot is an amazing starter. Because the hand control in this deck is incredible, and it's really good, especially for replacing units. Morgenrot, I would say, is one of the deck's best utilities, because he just lets you get another Blau in your hand, and especially if you're in like mid or late game when you're sitting on this card, and you want to make sure that you have the field of Blaus to get the pressure on your opponent, this is your best friend. And he is a very, high priority target of decks like Kagero and Narukami, because they don't want this thing to stay on the field, and for good reason. And since he doesn't have to go into the soul, you can use this ability as many times as you want. As long as you hit and you have a counterblast open, it just makes him even better. So the playstyle of the deck is very strong, very good in pressure. It can be a little bit weird sometimes because you need to have those Blaus on the front row, so your options for grade 2s and things like that can be a little bit limited. But your grade 1 support can be pretty diverse because, again, the archetype itself is pretty open, it's very versatile. So that's pretty nice about it. But now I'm going to talk about my own personal experience with this deck. So I've played this deck a lot in CFA. I mean, like, this was probably my #1 most used deck in CFA, aside from Ethics Buster Extreme. And for good reason. It's so much fun. You guys have seen, especially when I play against Odd, like, he understands just how much pressure, just how much power this deck has. And the thing that I just enjoyed about it was having that nice hand size, having control over my resources. The constant damage, flipping and unflipping. There's some very, very nice plays and good combos that, you can get off with this deck. And you can really surprise a lot of people with this deck, and just how much early game pressure you can get as well with cards like Mars Blaukluger, who is just a really good restanding unit by himself. So the fact that the deck doesn't necessarily need to run stand triggers means you can add in more crits and more draws, get more like critical pressure rather than restanding pressure, and keep a very nice hand. I'd say my average hand size, I'm not kidding you, with this deck is probably about 4 or 5 cards every single turn. Actually, probably even more like 5 or 6, because it's just so easy with cards like Energy Charger, the draw triggers, and Morgenrot to just keep that hand advantage. So for the aesthetics of this deck, I love its design. I love the entire archetype's design. They all look amazing. I love the nomenclature and the lore. They have a great story to them. The pressure aspect of this deck is so much fun. It has a great play style, and there's a reason that it's a very high-value deck. And my own personal experience has taught me that this is probably one of the best decks that I've ever used, and for good reason. It's fun because it's building on my nostalgia as a kid of just watching Gundam, and it really just makes me love Nova Grappler even more. So hope you guys enjoyed. This is a really fun series. I like doing this stuff to explain just why we play these decks. And yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Remember to always have a great day. Keep card fighting. Remember to like, comment, subscribe for more Team Zenith, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.